So, with Christmas over and the holiday season kind of coming to an end, being rounded out with New Year's here in a couple of days, what I want to do with you guys here today is I want to share a story, something that happened about 2 weeks ago within my guild. And I want to give kind of two pieces of feedback on this story. One is going to be more focused, more centered on those of you in leadership positions, my guild leaders, my raid leaders, my officers, etc. And then I want to tell a more generic but slightly more focused on my general pop raiders. Those of you that log in, you're not an officer, you're not in any leadership position, you kill things, you log off for the night, right? You go do whatever else you want to do. So before we get started on this, though, I do want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. I've mentioned this in other videos, but just in case you haven't watched them, which you totally should, right? One of the requirements to raid within my guild, minus a gear level and then a weapon trait level before I'll send you an invite. And again, that we've talked about kind of being a pliable, malleable requirement. If you're really close, 927, the requirement's 930. I'm probably gonna take you. Okay, it's 3 item levels. Whatever. But besides that, there is a standing requirement in order to be, I hate to say the word prioritized because it's not that you're prioritized, but in order to not be sent to the back of the line when it comes to loot for my raids, the guild agreed, and it was a guild member. It wasn't my idea that came up with this, but a guild member came up with this idea, and the majority of the guild loved the idea that we as leaders require you as a raider, and we are in this boat too. I require myself to do it, to do a Mythic Plus dungeon each week in order to receive loot. Now, when we started this rule, I think it was back in Nighthold, maybe early Nighthold, maybe late Emerald Nightmare, and the requirement, I think at the time, was a +10. I think it may have been lower, but let's say it's a +10. Now, as Antorus has kind of given out some pretty nice gear, and we're coming to the end of the expansion, and because the gear level and the items that you get from higher keys is significantly better, we have decided, and the guild agrees upon it, that we are going to require a higher and higher level key as the weeks go on. So right now it's a +12. Holiday season, we haven't bumped it up at all. However, once we start raiding again next week and subsequent weeks, we're going to continue to bump it up until it hits a +15. Now, the idea, the thought behind it when it was brought to my attention, and when we as a guild, as the raiders and then the leadership core, myself and my 2 officers, talked about it, was that because we only raid 2 nights a week, we were raiding 3 nights, and we kind of said, hey, if we do this Mythic Plus requirement, we can drop a night, because the idea is you as a player are doing something on your own time. You have 5 whole days, where we're not raiding. You can even do it on a raid night, obviously, where you can improve your character. You can get a better item, you get a legendary, you get a Titan Forged, and you're going to get a shit ton of artifact power. Now, with all that being said, there was a situation, not that it was negative, but there was something that happened about 2 weeks ago within one of my raids. I was giving out loot on maybe the 2nd or 3rd boss in like Heroic Antorus. And one of my raiders who's been in the guild 6 months or so, he whispered at me and he said, hey man, what's the deal? Like, I continue to get passed over for loot time and time again. Now, one of the things that I, as a raid and guild leader, like to do is, if you send me a question that pertains to a guild policy, a rule, something I've said, a question that maybe somebody else is going to have, I will read that question out in the raid. One, I don't have a lot of time because I'm giving out loot and instructing my officers and handling things and talking to, for the 20 some raiders that we have in the raid, I'm probably talking to a good quarter of them about bitching about this or DPS this or healing that or strategies or something, and there's a lot of conversations and there's a lot of busy work going on. So I don't have time to sit there and have a full-blown guild policy or raid policy, loot policy conversation with one dude. Whereas I can just say, hey, look, this question was asked. I don't call out the person's name. I go, hey, look, somebody just whispered me. They said, hey, what's the deal with this? Here's why we're doing it this way. I like being transparent. I don't like my raiders having questions that they're not getting answers for. So I repeated the question. I said, hey, look, I just had somebody, while I'm giving out loot, I just had somebody ask me why they're not getting loot. Here's the deal. If you're not doing Mythic Pluses, you're not going to get loot over someone that is doing the Mythic Plus. It is a raid requirement that the whole guild that raids, the raiding portion of the guild, agreed upon. That is why. And when I said that, the raider in question, he called himself out. He said, hey, look, that was my question. The reason why I'm asking this is because I'm not going to get an upgrade from a Mythic Plus. He's somewhere in the 940 item level. I am unsure at this time. I don't think he's at 75 traits, which is the rating requirement for new players. He may be, not that it matters. So he said, look, I'm not going to get an upgrade from this. So why am I required to do it? And I said, look, we're rating right now. This is an excellent question. It's an excellent discussion. However, wrong place, wrong time. You've brought it up. We'll talk about it. So now you guys know the basis for the story. And what happened afterwards was he whispered me after the raid and he's like, hey, look, can we talk about it? And we brought him into our officer, channel for Discord. And he said, look, I'm doing the exact same DPS as my peers. I'm at the top of the charts. I'm one of the higher end DPSers. I am doing fine performance-wise, and that's a metric that we can look at that may or may not be true. He does do decent DPS. He is in that top echelon for the guild, and he said, I'm not going to get an item that's going to replace something that I have. Again, is that true? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. So I told him, look, here's the deal. This is not a discussion that we are going to come to a resolution within 5 minutes. This is something that we as officers, as the guild leader and my two officers need to truly sit down and talk about, because this is a big deal. Like, this is a big policy change from something that the entire guild has agreed upon, that has been in the works for a year. It's been guild policy for a year about it. It's guild message of the day. Hey, do your Mythic Plus. I'm sure you guys that have watched my videos have seen it in the chat channel. Do your Mythic Plus for the week. So what happened afterwards was we brought up the idea. The officers and I sat down over the course of a couple of days. And while we were at work or, while we were, doing whatever, it was okay. Let's talk about this. Here's my thoughts. Here's your thoughts. Hey, I agree. I disagree. And what ended up happening was probably, as far as my officers go, my two officers, the biggest disparity between their mindsets that I've ever seen. Now, these guys, as far as I know, and I'm fairly certain, and I'm sure they'll crucify me if I'm wrong here, fairly certain these guys were friends before I met them. In fact, I'm like 99% certain that they've known each other for a long time, and they now work together, and they're in the same area, and we've hung out, and et cetera, et cetera. So these guys know each other. They are physically close to each other, and they didn't agree on what to do. One of them said, "Look, I can see his point that." The likelihood of getting an upgrade is low. If he's already at 75 traits, does he really need to get one? His point of view was, let's not say do a Mythic Plus for the sake of doing a Mythic Plus. We really need to have a reason that we require this. Now, the other officer said, look, it's something that the guild agreed upon. There is a chance of getting a better item. There is the fact that you get artifact power, a good chunk of artifact power, Not anything that, you could farm World Quest and get a good chunk, but, it is a sizable amount of artifact power that you're going to get, and there is a clear benefit for doing this. And like I said, guys, this went on for days. This was 2 or 3 days of them. Now, they were very tactful, and they said, there was nothing malicious. There was no, your ideas are stupid, but they very bluntly said to each other, I don't agree with that. Well, I don't like that. I don't think that's the right way to do it. And we went over it for days and days and days, and we shared our opinions. And in the end, fortunately, one of the perks as the guild leader is I'm really the one that sets the rules. And I took both sides, and I weighed in and told them my thoughts. I leaned more so towards one of the officers than the other. However, I could acknowledge that other guy's point of view, and I understood where he was coming from. So the resolution in the end was this. Still going to require a Mythic Plus. We're still going to bump the level up. However, if we get a player that reaches that 960 item level, since that's what you're getting that's what you're getting from Mythic Pluses is 960 item level loot, and a person has all 3 of their weapons, or I guess 4 if you're a druid, but if a player has 3 of their weapons, at least 75 traits, and they complain about it, because we do have some players that are, stupid high in the artifact trait department. We'll take another look at it, but for right now, we're going to keep the requirement. And what I want to do with 12 minutes into the video is, like I said, I want to share my thoughts on both sides of this. So the first thing here is, if you're in a leadership position, it is your duty, and I swear I have duty. I swear I've mentioned this before, but if not, I'm going to mention it again. It is your duty as an officer, as a raid leader, if you're someone in a leadership position, to share your opinion, to share your input, to have your voice, because that's your job in a leadership position, is your voice. You are there to look at things, to smooth things out, etc. We've talked about, you as a leader in a raid, your job, regardless of what you are, how high ranking you are, guild leader, raid leader, officer, it doesn't matter. Your job is to make the most efficient, the smoothest run possible based on the responsibilities that you have. So, it's your job to speak up and to share your input. And in this case, in this story, both of my officers, while they completely disagreed with each other, they did their damn job. They were tactful, they were polite, and this conversation went on for several days, where we would sit down on Discord, whether it be at work or during play, and like after work, playing World of Warcraft, we would ask questions like, do you think that if we made this the guild policy instead, that this would be better? No, I don't think that would help at all, and here are the reasons why. Well, I disagree with that, and here are the reasons why. And these two guys went back and forth, and I kind of, I don't want to say mediated, because I did lean towards one over the other. But again, I'm able to acknowledge both sides, and both of them had some pretty damn good points. Both were very compelling, but the thing is that both of these guys didn't sit down, they didn't step aside, they shared their input. And I've mentioned this before, I swear, on a video, I don't know which one it was, but there was a speech given by, he was the Commandant of the Marine Corps, Charles Krulak, 3 or 4 star general. And he shares in here this amazing story, and I'll try to find the video for you guys that are interested in it. But he shares this story of how it is your job, and after having this situation and totally seeing it, it's your job to give your input when it comes to something. If you're in a leadership position. Now, ultimately, it is the commander, whatever, the general, the colonel, the guild leader, your boss, that makes the decision and says yes or no. But it's your job as a leader to share your input. However, once that input has been given, and you have shared your input and your ideas, and even if you say, look, man, look, sir, I disagree with this. I don't think that policy that you're looking to enact is good for the guild. I don't like it. I don't like, this call that you're making for the troops. I think this work policy is not good for the guys. You must back it up. Like I said, two of the officers that I have, one said one thing, one said another. I went with one of them over the other. However, I expect the guy that disagreed with us to back me 110%. And I know he will. I have no doubt about that he will. He gave his input, and ultimately we did agree on, a policy that we keep our current requirement. However, again, if there's complaints and whatnot, after people meet this, this larger requirement, we can look at it again. But we're not there yet, so we're going to carry on. Now, what I also want to do, since we've talked about the guild leaders and the raid leaders and the officers and anyone in a leadership position, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, what I do want to do is then I want to talk to my raiders. Those of you that log in, you get your potions, your flasks, you join the raid group, you kill a few things, you log out for the night. Here's the deal, guys. Even though you are not in a leadership position, it is your job, if you are unhappy, if you disagree with something, to tactfully, and watch the on tact, to tactfully bring it up. Now, again, I know I've said this a billion times, there's a right time and a right place. Guild policy changes, raid policy changes in the middle of, a boss in Antorus is probably not the right time to talk about it. Before the raid, preferably after the raid, probably the right time to bring it up and say, hey, look, can we look at this? I don't agree with it. And I think that as a raider, regardless of how long you've been within a guild, it is your right and something that you should be encouraged to do if you disagree with something, to bring it up and to talk to your leadership. Now, here's the thing though, and here's something that I think a lot of people, a lot of raiders, a lot of people in general struggle with. This raider of mine brought up a guild policy, a raiding requirement that he disagreed with. Now, if he brings it up, which he did, and we shoot it down, we did, he doesn't have a right to be mad. He can't expect just because he brought it up for it to automatically change. Now, in this case, he had no problem with it. He's cool with it. However, I'm just talking in general terms that if I say, I don't like the way this thing happens or this thing works, I think that we should change this rule. I don't expect a guild leader or a raid leader or my boss to go, you're right, dude, we'll change it. Nope. They can talk about it. They can look at it. They can say, okay, here are the reasons why or why not that we're going to make this change. Thank you for your input. I really appreciate it. And that's something that a lot of people struggle with, is they expect because they don't like something for it to automatically change. I've seen that within World of Warcraft, within raiding, within life, within, in the Marine Corps, where they go, I don't like that our platoon does this, so we should change it. Well, you know what? Suck it up. It's a Marine Corps requirement. We're going to do it. And I'm sure you guys have seen it too. So my point here is, as a leader, your job is to share your input, share your voice, but then back whatever the final decision is. Your job, among many other things, as a raider, kill bosses, put out high numbers, don't die to mechanics. If you don't like something, bring it up tactfully, right place, right time. But once a call has been made and somebody says yes or no, you can either accept it or find another guild. Don't bitch and go, oh, I've been here 2 years in this guild and you guys haven't made this change. Sorry. Now, with all that being said, you guys know the deal. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you didn't like the video, go ahead and hit that dislike button. However, let me know in the comment section below what you did or didn't like. Do you guys think that the raid requirement is too much? Is it too little? Is it something that you agree that, if you get to 960 item level and 75 traits and all your weapons, that it's something that you shouldn't just automatically be required to do. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section down below. And until next time, guys, I'll see you.